And a hearty beyond to all of you. Say it with me, beyond.
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 There,
You started with the word and.
Good. Very good. Everyone's doing great. This is Beyond. Welcome, everybody, to Beyond once again. I don't know. Yeah, I don't. There's literally never been a way that I've done this right. So we're just going to keep on going.
I think that was beautiful.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to Beyond. It's a PlayStation podcast, or so we say. This is episode 521. I am Max Scoville, and I'm joined by Miranda Sanchez.
Hello.
Jonathon Dornbush.
Beyond.
We already did that enough.
No, I can keep going.
All right.
You could tell by his shirt.
Yeah, that's all I'm going to say today.
Afterwards. And then Marty Sliva.
You can tell by his shirt he has a PlayStation passion.
It's not PlayStation.
Sonic the Hedgehog
Yeah.
and Sega
It has a
Genesis
TV
Master
on it,
System.
and you have to have a
Close
TV
enough.
to play.
Exactly.
PlayStation.
Beyond.
Sonic the Hedgehog loves to go on all sorts of different consoles now and then.
Much like the Flash, he has to go
Yeah.
fast.
So it's this is a weird time. We're all on Thanksgiving break over the weekend and eating lots of food and hopefully playing some games. So I figured we'd start off and just talk about we've actually been playing games for fun. Yeah?
Possible.
What?
Yes.
That's bonkers.
I want to talk first. You've started Assassin's Creed, which is something we talked about a couple weeks ago, but
I
you finally
haven't
jumped in.
started it. I've gotten really sucked into that, which I wasn't really expecting. I think I kind of was. I almost tried to psych myself out of it, where I was like, I don't know, I'm not really an Assassin's Creed guy, but I do love a good pyramid here and there. But I kind of looked up yesterday. I was like, oh, hey, I'm level 20, which I think is about the halfway mark in the game.
I think 40 is the cap.
You get an achievement it's like only 8,800 more points to go to max out your stats or something. And I was like, what? Did you tell me the experience? That kind of takes the fun out of it.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just a gorgeous world. I had a really fun little thing happen to me in there where I was coming back from a mission where you had to get an ox cart. This guy had his cart stolen, and the game has this wonderful feature where it'll just basically go into autopilot mode. Like the horses will ride along the roads themselves, or they'll just head to a waypoint so you can check your phone or do whatever you need to do. And I was like, I'm all done with the mission. I just got to return this cart to the nearby town. It's great. I'll set the waypoint. I'll just click it in there, and then I had to go and help my fiance with the turkey getting in the oven. And that took longer than anticipated. I came back and I had gone like a third of the way across the map, and the whole mission was to return this friggin' cart. So I had to turn back around and sort of just go back again. And I'd gone through all these areas I hadn't been to. It's like, you discovered 5 new territories. And I'm like, I didn't do that. It was the oxes. They did that.
Excited.
Yeah, but honestly, the game it's really, really fun. It's got all these bits and pieces from other games that I've loved. It's got elements of, a Far Cry, obviously, but also bits and pieces of kind of Phantom Pain. And it's got, to release a game the same year as Breath of the Wild that involves climbing and not have that climbing feel, I don't know, worse is impressive. It's just the traversal's really fun, and I don't know, it's just freaking gorgeous too.
Yeah, this is. I've loved the Assassin's Creed games since the start. It's one of my favorite modern franchises. I feel like this one has done a really smart thing about evolving the series after a bit of stagnation.
Mm-hmm.
And I liked Syndicate a lot, but there's so much here that makes it it's a more fully formed RPG in a lot of ways. And I love this living, breathing world feels like what they promised you in the first game finally come to fruition in a lot of ways. And I appreciate that finally having that.
I think them taking off last year was the smartest thing they could have done. It sort of relieved some of that franchise fatigue, but then also they came back to the drawing board, and this feels like an open world action RPG. This doesn't feel like an action adventure game like you saw there with all the numbers are popping up, and all the loot is the different the colors du jour of 2017 with purples and golds and everything. But everything about the game is just interesting. The characters are interesting, the settings are interesting. You care about Bayek and Aya. More so than, aside from the characters in Syndicate, I've cared about characters in Assassin's Creed in 6 installments or so. And so, the thing about this game is you can choose to get lost in the story, or a good open world game, you can be like, what's that? And then you're exploring a pyramid, and they're like, oh, what's that? And you find the Sphinx, and the Sphinx is much smaller than you think it would be, because apparently that's the Sphinx in real life. It's only as big as a truck.
Yeah.
Wait, really?
It's as big as a semi. That's
not a huge Sphinx. Yeah. But no, it's just really, really impressive. And I've kind of been playing it. I've almost been trying not to engage with the story too much. I'm like, I kind of want to just run around. But you can't spend 20 hours with something and not take something away from it,
Yeah.
But I am playing the entire game wearing this metal cat helmet. That is great because it's got this echo. So whenever Bayek talks, he's like. Yeah. It's just it sounds like he's in a little. Well, it sounds like he has a bucket on his head because he sort of does. But yeah. They totally have a ton of microtransactions in here that are not even time savers. Like
Yeah.
But they're in there, but they're not in your face.
they're fine.
Like I've played 25 hours and I haven't even felt the desire to touch one.
It's the same in most recent Ubisoft games. They're just in there. There's the flipping ox cart.
Oh, that's the cart.
It is.
It's stuck.
It's an
adventure.
fun game.
There's a fun little. My thing is I've loved sort of some of the setup of past Assassin's Creed games. I feel like this game, I'm only 6 or 7 hours in, isn't necessarily the best Assassin's Creed game. But it's a great game, but in terms of like the traversal and the stealth, like is not the best exciting part to me. To me, it's about leveling up by exploring this world and all these stories that are immersed in there, whereas in past games it was about like how can I climb this tower in an interesting way? How can I do that? That's less of a focus for me in this game, but I'm okay with that. I don't mind.
And it does, like you said, you love the series, and it does a lot of like it sets up a bunch of it answers where did a bunch of these things come from, even if like you don't have a question. Like did you ever have a question of why is the Assassin's Creed symbol like that? Because I didn't. It'll tell you. And I'm like,
You should have watched the movie.
I'm glad.
Oh, no.
No, I'm not going to do
Let's
that.
talk about that.
Yeah, that's not canonical anymore. But yeah, I think Assassin's Creed, despite the fact that it's going to sell super well, and it clearly did on NPD last month, I think especially around IGN, it sort of fell victim of the fact that of the 3 games released on the 27th, it's the one people weren't talking about the most. And then obviously we'll get to Wolfenstein in a little bit because there's some news around it. But I have a feeling that as people pick this up, like it was probably super cheap on Black Friday. I think people are going to pick this up for $20 or $30 and then be super pleasantly surprised by how awesome of a game it is.
It's also it's comfort food in a weird way. Like it's kind of I'm playing it with the difficulty turned down, and I'm just kind of running around hitting people with a hammer and just like collecting stuff and riding a horse. And I don't know, a lot of the systems are those familiar Ubisoft, like climb the thing, synchronize the bird or whatever, but there are little incremental tweaks here and there that really do kind of move it forward. One thing I think is great is we've got that whole kind of that Ubisoft tower trope of you climb the thing and it unlocks part of the map or whatever. In this case, it also makes your bird smarter, which I thought was a really nice touch. So it's like you're able to scan more quickly when you're kind of like scoping out an outpost to see if there are people in there.
Scene is awesome. I love that bird.
And it's also like it explains why like. So if you're this is the birth of the assassins, the actual order, the creed, like, and you have this bird that you're friends with, and your bird was taught to go to the top of the tower and learn a bunch of things. It's like, oh, that explains why there's a bunch of weird birds at the top of every important city on Earth in the rest of the games. It's like they all learned this is the mother bird.
Yeah, at the top of every tower, Senu laid a little egg.
Yeah, and some of them were like time bombs for like 1,000 years. It's like during the French Revolution, you will hatch and you will become the Assassin's Creed Unity.
I'd watch that Assassin's Creed movie.
All through the lens of birds.
Through the lens of Senu.
So
That'd be
a new novel.
A good short.
Ooh, yeah.
Ubisoft, they like their birds. They like having birds and stuff.
Eagle Flight, remember that?
Eagle Flight's basically an Assassin's Creed game where you're
That
the
was
bird.
fun.
Yeah.
Now another game that is being played. I'm not sure who. Marty, you wrote This Little Nightmares. Was that you?
I did write This Little Nightmares.
So you played Little Nightmares?
I replayed it. I played it
Replayed it,
originally when it came out, and then I replayed it with a friend over the weekend who doesn't play a ton of games, but she's super into horror stuff. And so I was like, well, this is like, it's mechanically like a super simple game. Like you see here, it's a very limbo / inside-esque game where it's a little more 3D, like you're walking like to and from there's a bit of depth to it.
I think that level of just a little bit of depth it kind of made it feel more mechanically sound. You've also got like a lighter.
You have a lighter, and a lot of times because the whole thing is this game is like the most terrifying like child's nightmare I've ever seen in the game.
Have you guys played this at all?
I played this a little bit at TGS last year,
Okay.
and I was just like, wow, this is spooky.
It's very spooky.
I won't play this anymore.
But
I
it's
really
also,
want to play. Yeah.
It's also like I think Chloe had a long string of tweets about how so much of it is pulled from Spirited Away and other Miyazaki movies. Max, I know you played this and loved it.
Yeah, what I loved about it is that it does borrow from Spirited Away and bits of other Miyazaki, but it's not on the nose about it. Like we get all this stuff that basically feels like bootleg games, which is sort of, it's kind of weird how that's baked into the history of games. You look at like, I don't know, Metal Gear and Contra and stuff like that. But no, in this case, it's almost like a reinterpretive cover song where they do something interesting with it. It's got this very sort of muddy kind of claymation feel. It feels, I think it's a Swedish studio that made it.
I think so, yeah.
But it's got this very, I don't know, it reminds me of like old stop motion films that you'd see on PBS that would give you nightmares as a child, even though they're supposed to be for kids. And you're like, why?
It's that, like my mom grew up in Poland, and when I would go back and visit her, she'd have these like just books or like albums at the house she grew up in. And I'm like, this was for you as a child because this is terrifying to me as an adult. Like, I don't know why this is here.
Also, a really cool thing is that at no point is it, I think like aggressively gruesome. Like it doesn't.
Yeah.
It does a really good job of not being like even Limbo and Inside do that to a point where I'm like, you didn't need to do that. Like the first time I see a little boy get his head ripped off,
Yeah,
I'm like,
that was
Yeah.
a lot.
In both games, like if you get torn apart by a dog and inside, you're like, oh, this is
yeah,
brutal.
but it feels like you kind of. I mean, there's definitely stuff in here that's like very like where if you're watching.
Well, yeah,
the
I mean that
there's-
is a man who
you'll
himself.
you'll walk into a room and you're like, oh, there's somebody's feet just hanging there because you're on the scene of a suicide. But in the same way that you're like this child, you're like it's almost that's not the focus at all.
But also handled the wrong way, you would have heard just the excruciating like pain of the man.
Sure.
that-
Well, also you don't know. Maybe he's doing pull-ups and it's just very hard to do the last one, so he's dangling
like,
there
you
until
know-
he gets the arm strength.
yeah,
Yeah, maybe he's like just hanging out on the ceiling. Like, what
Yeah.
if he fell through?
Yeah.
I could be.
off
Yeah,
the
you never
stick
know.
Sort of like
wacky slapstick comedy.
or like Winnie the Pooh, where he gets stuck because he's trying to get all the
the tree?
honey, and then
Yeah.
he gets stuck because his bottom's too big.
Well, it does have this very, very like picture book kind of feeling to it. Like it reminds me of you read like Hansel and Gretel or something, and there's like a witch who wants to eat children, but at first she's gonna bake them and like feed them a bunch, and you're like, as an adult, you're like, dear God, that is just disgusting. That is an awful, awful thing. But as a kid, you're like, oh yeah, of course a witch is going to eat you. That's what witches do. They eat the kid. And in this case, there's like these people out there who try to eat you, and it's really, really frightening because it's just this kind of like they'll grab at you, and it's not like you see them rip your head off and chew your brains up or whatever like a regular video game would show you. It's got this kind of like picture bookish just simplicity to it.
Yeah,
But
it's like also a fear of the unknown. Like you don't know what
completely.
happens, and that's really scary.
Yeah.
I don't really know what the story is for this, although I did play a little bit of it. I didn't know what it was at the time. I like the perspective a lot.
Yeah.
Like of being a kid, like just remembering being a kid. I remember my elementary school, and I remember going back when I was an adult, and it was weird.
Oh, yeah.
Everything was just small.
Tiny. Yeah.
I'm like,
The
no,
desks.
Yeah.
huge.
Yeah, it's the thing is like you're this little kid and like clearly I don't know if you're I mean you look humanoid but like nothing in this game is like particularly human.
Right.
But everything is just like that chair shouldn't be that big. Like I should be bigger than this chair. And that's sort of what I thought like you said, I think you mentioned perfectly. Or like when I go back to my parents' house, like the way I remembered it, everything was bigger. And I go back there now and I'm like, oh, how really? Like it's this small? This is what this place is like.
No, I mean everyone loved Inside. I would say this game is as good as, or if not like better than Inside. I loved it so much.
Yeah, it definitely relies more on horror than Inside.
Inside felt a lot like Super Limbo, and I thought
Yeah.
Limbo was great, but it was also, I don't know, to play that kind of muted. You're like a little boy again. Are you the same little boy? I don't know. In this case, it feels like there's this kind of other. It's surrealist. Like there's a lot of stuff in there that doesn't get explained, and you kind of just piece it together yourself, and you can construe your own symbolism from it. But
in a year where it seems like compared to last year where we were talking about Inside and The Witness and Firewatch and Oxenfree, it seems like this year all the games most of the games we've been sort of championing have been big AAA because it has been an incredible year for stuff like Horizon and Zelda.
Crazy.
Yeah. So it's cool that this is one of those games that did come out a couple months ago and I feel like people slept on it. And now there's a couple pieces of DLC which I still haven't played yet, but I think there's like a Game of the Year edition that's pretty cheap too. So highly recommended.
Maybe I'll grab somebody and play it.
Yeah. Play it with, I mean, like a lot of horror games, I think playing with people is, especially if you're sort of afraid of them, is like
I
a better
get
way.
super scared. I had to play Inside with somebody else.
Yeah.
Like it's not that scary, but there are parts where it's scary enough for me to feel
totally,
like, not comfortable playing.
Yeah.
One of the best experiences I've ever had was playing PT with a group of people, especially who'd never played games before, but it's simple enough to understand.
That's totally like I view. I think we were talking to Mitch over the weekend about how he was playing Until Dawn as a party game.
Oh, Until Dawn's great for that.
And it was sort of like a bunch of people like screaming at the TV, and that's how you play. You're playing like you're going to like a super seedy movie theater, and everyone's a little bit drunk and just screaming at the characters doing stupid things.
I think one of the fundamental things of survival horror games is the same thing that makes slasher films work is that when there's that whole like don't go up the stairs when you're playing with like an old survival horror game with like tank controls or something, or in a game where you don't actually have any way of defending yourself, you panic and you do the wrong thing and you screw up and you're like, why am I not going up the stairs? Why can't I go up the stairs? And it's like it actually translates that feeling of like, oh, people in horror movies do the wrong thing all the time because people under pressure do the wrong thing.
My favorite Spike Lee movie.
Yeah, do the okay.
People under pressure do the right thing.
Now, Miranda, one game you've been talking about a lot is DokiDoki Literature DokiDoki Literature Club. This is full disclosure. This is a PlayStation podcast, but because you're very cool, we're going to allow you to talk about a personal computer game.
Yes. So it is on computer. You can't play this on your PlayStation. Any of them.
No.
Newer.
My PS2.
No.
I mean, you could case mod it
Nokia.
and put in the innards of a computer.
Maybe you could, yeah. If you're that fancy.
Yeah.
So yeah, this is a visual novel that I want everyone to play. Marty played it.
Yes, I love it.
I'm so glad
Yeah.
that you loved it. Dan Stapleton is playing it.
Which
the
is
funniest
so
thing.
fun to watch.
One thing about this is it's free. You can download it for free on Steam. So that's the thing is it's a PC game, yes, but it's completely free.
And it works on Mac, it works on PC.
It works on,
You can
I have an
download it on
underpowered
Steam
Mac
or not
laptop.
Steam. Yeah, so it's just like you can play on pretty much anything. It's super well written and incredibly weird what it wants to do.
So
and that's the biggest reason we keep pushing this, especially if you don't like anime, if you don't like visual novels, if you don't like reading. I mean, you're going to read a lot, but I highly recommend it.
Now I've heard that it, kind of starting it out, it does, it's sort of conventional at first.
Yes.
How long does it take to get into it?
It is very trippy at first, and that's obviously intentional. Like I want to do a spoilcast soon talking about that and how that's effective. But I think for some people, they said it took about them an hour and a half, 2 hours, depending on how fast you read and get through all these lines.
Okay.
And so your day-to-day looks like you go to this club, you have to write some poetry, and then you bring back your poetry. That kind of determines which character you're romancing. This is a dating sim, technically. And then you read poetry from the other girls in the club. And so you just kind of go through that, and then some things happen, and then some real weird things happen.
And so when the writing poetry is actually, so this is what the first probably third-ish of the game looks like. It looks like this from a couple of different points of view. Like I promise you, it gets very different than this.
Yeah, so that's the thing too, is like why we're so adamant about like recommending. It's like, hey, even if you don't like this thing, it's really, really interesting what it tries to do with the conventions of a visual novel, which is just, going through the motions of reading, and like usually has a lot of tropes. Like, gosh, so many visual novels are just full of tropes.
Yeah.
It's bad. And this is so good in how it uses that.
It seems I'm not through it fully yet, but it seems very self-aware of the tropes.
So
like it understands what it's doing with that.
It's kind of in love with misdirection.
Yeah.
So that's what you need to be prepared for. There are some like very severe content warnings, which I always like to bring up because they are disturbing, and it is.
The game actually starts with one too of like it's pretty much like, hey, we understand that the game looks like this. This isn't what the game is like.
Yeah, so it's like, please just warning for yourself.
Like this is like it would be such a disservice of the game to explain the final 2/3 and like why it's so powerful, but just like
it's hard because it's really hard to talk about because the turning point is just so effective and like how it's written was so powerful that I just like had to take a few moments for myself to kind of pull myself together. And that's really rare in games for me. It's because, especially with visual novels, like a lot of them are written well enough, but this one is just excellent. Like understands what it's trying to do with its messaging, and generally just an all around.
And it's also like as silly as it is, like the poetry mechanic I think is really interesting because the way it works is you talk to these girls and you sort of start befriending them and you realize which one you sort of want to go after. And one of them is really into manga and is like super like light and bubbly, and then there's another one who's her nose is in literature and she's sort of like cold and distant. And so when you're writing poems, like you have a list of like I think it's like 20 words, and then you keep choosing which word you want to add to your poem, and that will earn you brownie points towards one of the girls. And so you have to be like, oh, this is like, like if like the word juxtaposition, you're like, well, the one who reads manga probably wouldn't be into this, but maybe the one who's, nose deep in like Russian novel would be. And so like you're crafting a poem, for lack of a better term.
Oh my gosh.
After a couple poems, you get the hang of like which words correspond to.
Yeah, so there's
which
3 girls, and then some of them cross between both, but then you'll figure it out pretty quickly. And just seeing this poem on the screen, if you're listening, not watching, you should watch. It means so much having already played the game. I'm just like, oh.
Yeah. No, and it's totally like,
my
I think,
gosh.
Max, I think you're specifically going to love it, knowing what, again, without cutting the spoilers, like both of us have a similar, very favorite franchise of all time that is clearly associated with PlayStation from someone's name who sounds like
Lost.
Yeah, that's kind of a vibe.
This totally seems like the kind of thing that he would be into.
I also did love manga and tried to write poetry to impress girls in high school, so this speaks.
So you're going to love the first third.
All right.
Yeah.
For the record, it did not work.
It's called the DokiDoki Literature Club. It is free. It's 4-ish hours, 3 hours, 4 hours.
And they
how fast do you read? Really, like give me like 5 hours. And I'm a slow reader.
They did not pay us off to plug their game because they are not charging for it, and that isn't really good business.
I saw a fun tweet that was like, "Hey, it's free this weekend. Like it's free all the time."
Yeah.
Yeah. So if you like this game, also encourage you guys to go maybe throw some money that team's way, because they have like a fan pack that has like a or art book and some like extra character.
Yeah, it's just funny seeing the cascade of like every one of the UK teams just played it, and then seeing like Krupa and Gav and Rory falling in love with it.
Yeah, we wouldn't be talking about it if it wasn't something special.
Yep.
On the note of the games where the Japanese teenagers got to go to school and do clubs and stuff, we talking about Persona 5?
Hey, yeah,
So,
we are.
hello, Jonathan.
Where's Andrew?
Maybe, yeah, I know. Surprise.
He's
Hello.
right now. It's Jonathan.
Andrew Jr.
It's like
How's
the
it going?
same.
Yeah. Oh my God, I can't stop playing Persona 5, which I never thought I'd say those words, having sat next to Andrew for a year and a half.
I thought the exact same thing.
Yep. It's so strange because I kind of was resilient just of how in love with it he was. I was like, I probably can't get into it because I know he loved the series from earlier entries too. And I know that they're sort of separated one to the other, but man, do I love just the style of this game, the plot, the mechanics, everything about it hooked me from minute one, even though the first 10 hours is basically the tutorial.
Yeah.
But it's so engaging. And I'm 30 hours in, it's been maybe a week and a half. I don't want to stop. I don't want to be here right now. Sorry.
Yeah.
I want to go be at home and play Persona
That's
5.
the best feeling.
Yeah, and I have not I've liked a lot of games this year, but I have not been glued to a game like this in at least a year, 2 years.
It just sort of
really
has
hit me.
everything going for it in terms of its style. It's a very singular, this is what we're trying to do, and it comes across in the art style, in the UI choices, in the music, and it all feeds into that one thing.
Music's
Then its
so
battle system is incredible.
Yeah.
The battle system just feels as good as a turn-based RPG has in maybe ever. And then once you get sort of out of the first dungeon and the game opens up, the time management and social management aspect of the game is again if you've ever liked not only a Persona game but a dating sim or something like Animal Crossing or something where you're I have X amount of time, what do I do with it? What do I want to pursue? It all feeds into that, and a super killer story, really interesting subplots, amazing characters, amazing side characters.
Yeah, it feels like a season of a TV show that's very smartly split up across a calendar year sort of thing. Yeah. And as you're going through each palace, which are the main areas where you're fighting, I love the battle system because it has this brilliant thing of you can just fight or you can try to, essentially there's a Pokemon capturing mechanic with the enemies and you can steal their powers, but you can also hold them up for money. Yeah. You can mug the enemies. Yeah. You have all these options, so you can smartly play through a palace for a day and say oh, I really need money to get new weapons, so I'm just going to go to a lower tier level for now and fight a bunch of enemies to get money, or maybe I need to level up. There are all these options that you can do there, and that's mirrored so smartly in the day-to-day of just mundane living of, do I go work this job? Do I go read a book? Do I go flirt with this girl in class that I love? Yeah. Hi, on.
That's something classic. That's something I love about this is that it does have that balance between real life, day-to-day life, totally normal mundane stuff, and this kind of fantastical thing. Because so often I think in a lot of anime and JRPG stuff, it just goes overboard and it just gets completely so far-fetched, which is I think what really pulled me into Final Fantasy 15 was the food and just the sort of road trip mechanic.
And you're oh, this is grounding me.
This is stuff that I do. I understand this. But yeah, that's really cool.
That's what's hooked me about it.
When do you think it clicked? When do you think you really?
So the dumb thing is, it clicked for me immediately because the intro, if you just let the cinematic play, is so cool. It captures the style of the game and the music and the look of it instantly. I was oh, I'm into this. And it was that dumb thing of that happened to me with Kingdom Hearts.
Is it the skating intro?
Yes.
So that was done by one of the people that did Yuri on Ice.
Not surprising.
Really?
Yeah, that makes sense. It's just such a good intro, and it just kind of was oh, I want to watch this intro 20 times because it's cool and great, and I did that. And then I played, and it took probably maybe 3 or 4 hours, but I was oh, okay, this is where it's going. This is sort of the ideas that are opening up, and I loved being able to realize oh, I do that thing in real life, so that's kind of how my character is acting here. That's why I'm leaning towards that friendship or that line of work. Or
I need to jump back into that.
I love it so much.
It reminds me of cool. It just exerts cool in the same way Cowboy Bebop does. Where I'm just everything about this is cool. You all look so cool. You sound so cool. The editing is so cool.
So I have everyone in Christmas outfits right now for the holiday.
That's the coolest.
Okay.
Morgana, Morgana is in a little snowman suit.
It's a Kabuto.
Yeah. It's great.
And also, if you're wondering, the reason we're talking about a lot of stuff like this is because by the time the next episode goes up, or we record the next episode, all of our Game of the Year nominees will be out. So we've had a big meeting. We've locked down not only what the main 10 nominees are, but with each platform, and then a bunch of different genres and mechanical stuff. And so we all of us have a bunch of homework we have to do and
so much homework.
catch up on stuff.
Yeah.
I feel bad for putting down Persona. I've played the intro 3 times now.
Which is so funny because you're one of the biggest P4 Golden fans.
Yeah, and then played in Japanese once on a stream. And 4 times. Once on my own, and then I had to restart because I lost my save.
Yeah, I can imagine why you wouldn't have gotten back into it.
I was just
That
oh.
sucks. Oh man.
Yeah.
No, I did this thing, and I realized I've done this with so many games that I adore, where I fall in love with a game or sink a bunch of time into it, and then just have to move on to the next thing.
Yep. Yeah.
And that happened with Phantom Pain, it happened with Witcher, it happened with I want to say Final Fantasy 15, but like these huge games where it's like there's you need to take a break, you need to, or else something comes up and you need to go back to it. But I think I'll do that thing where I'm like, I'll think back to it, and it's not quite nostalgia, but it's more like, ooh, yeah, that sounds
It's
good.
like longing.
Yeah. You're like, ooh, I miss how good that was.
Yeah, and Persona has really smart break points in it if you want, because of the way the palaces and everything is sort of structured. So if you want to take a break, I can see that like working pretty well for you.
That's one of the reasons I'm kind of sad this isn't on Vita. Like, I understand why
Yeah.
I think it shouldn't be played on Vita, just because it is so grand in its visuals. But it's just like, dang it, I could take my
It'd
Vita
be
with me
great.
everywhere and just take
And that's
down
what,
and
any game where you're grinding like on the go is sort of the way to do it. Or portable. And then having something on in the background, like I don't know, watching The Punisher, sort of like zoning out to it in the background and then grinding through a game. Like that's how I'm playing Mario and getting a bunch of moons that way, to where it's like, all right, I can sort of just like zone out, get a bunch of stuff while watching.
Yeah, because I mean, I love when RPGs have like wonderful deep stories, but the reality is there's also usually like, oh, you've got to go and harvest seashells or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's Animal
You're
Crossing.
playing a lot of Pocket Camper, aren't you?
So speaking of things that are portable and are on Vita, another great game that came out, much like DokiDoki Literature Club, that was very weird and kind of screwed with people's expectations, is Undertale.
Yes.
And you have in your hands, Miranda, the collector's edition.
The Vita Collector's Edition.
Vita collector's edition.
Yeah, I bought it on Vita.
Vita
'cause
lives.
I already had it digitally on PS4, and I, of course, had it on PC forever. And so I was like, yes, I must get this on Vita now.
Yeah.
This isn't new. Like this is just the second shipment of a collector's edition, because I didn't pre-order it fast enough to get the September shipment or whatever it is.
This is through Fangamer?
Yes. So this collection, if you love Undertale, please buy this. It is incredible. It was way cheaper than it should have been. I think it was like maybe $60 or $70.
Comes with so much stuff.
Yeah, like it has okay, I'm gonna open this. We have an unboxing, but I want to open this anyway because I just got it. I'm really excited.
I really wish we got more collector's editions that came out after the game existed,
Yeah.
Yeah.
when people already like actually appreciate it, as opposed to this like rushed pre-order thing.
Right. It's like, hey, you love this thing. Now you can give the studio that you loved for making this more money because you want them to have money to make more cool things. So it comes like this really incredible locket that plays one of the main themes.
Yeah,
and
well, the good thing
makes
is
me cry.
we were doing an
heavy.
unboxing in what is partially an audio show, but one
Yeah.
of the things in the box, let's get that out of here. Let's do that. Let's
Okay.
play the music
Here, go
box.
for
So
it. I'll get to
people
this
who are
now.
only listening, you'll get to hear what the collector's edition
Sounds like.
locket sounds like. But
Yeah, so then of course you have the cartridge, but it also has like this really pretty golden book art book. And then it also has a sticker of the annoying dog. Oop,
This is
very
named
good.
The Annoying Dog.
yeah.
That's so sad. That's just the saddest music. So we've
me with hope.
talked about this game a couple times on the show. Like I think we had Kelly on last year talking about it. But like, what for people who might not know what Undertale is?
So-
now that it's available on PS4 and Vita.
Yes, so Undertale is I'm just getting like emotional. Undertale is a bullet hell adventure game where you are a child that falls into the world of monsters. It's kind of below the surface, and they've been trapped down here ever since man and monster went to fighting, and they lost the battle and got shoved underground. And what is happening is these monsters are trying to kill any human that comes in. And so like you're at risk, you fall into this safe zone, and this mama goat takes care of you until you have to fight her and get
I know
out.
you're just summarizing it. You're not really describing it as a game.
Yeah, so I'm telling the story, summarizing the story. So then, like I said, it's a bullet
spoil
hell. No, I'm not,
Is it a bullet hell?
yeah, like you have to dodge a bunch of stuff.
Can't you also just not dodge some of the stuff though?
So, I mean, you can die, yeah.
But I mean, can't
so
you
Some
you
of the
can.
mechanics
So
are-
the mechanic. This is where we get to it. You can choose to fight the monsters you find, or spare them. You can just be friends. You can play however you want. Like I don't really want to go into like all of the paths because that's a really big part of it, and I know a lot of people got spoiled on it, and it sucks. But going into this game fresh, not really knowing a ton about it aside from like the summary and like mechanics, is really the best way to do it. I went in fresh and learned so much and was affected so much by how smart this game is. It pays attention to how you play, and that was kind of the first time I had experienced it in a game.
It's a tough thing about recommending games like this is that I feel like with a movie or with an album or a song, it's like hey, did you check this movie out? And you're like, no, I haven't heard of it. I'm like, oh, it's a super incredible horror movie. Just watch it. It's 90 minutes.
Yes, it's like this in DokiDoki Literature Club. It's just like I can't tell you everything because
and it's not it's an active commitment that, I mean, DokiDoki is relatively short, but like games are longer than a movie or longer than an album or longer than a song. So it's like, it's hard to recommend it without going into it and just being like, shut up and watch this, shut up and play
Right.
this.
Yeah.
This is the first game that I played that I felt like I immediately needed to replay it. I've played this 4 times. This will be my 5th time.
How long does it take to play through it? That's another question. Because you can't see the bottom necessarily.
I don't know.
Okay.
Because I play one really slow and collect everything.
Okay.
And yeah, that's about it. I do everything. So it took me maybe
Like 10 hours, more or less?
8 to 10 hours
Yeah,
my first playthrough.
I played first. I was less collecting focused than you, I think, and I
Yeah.
played probably in like 7, maybe 6 to 7 . So
Yeah.
it's not bad for your first time if you're just running through.
And it is a little bit grindy too, right?
Right, there's a lot of secrets, there's lots of grinding, lots of items to collect, and just like fun puzzles that you can find are totally optional. Like I said, this is a game that you will want to replay. I mean, you don't have to, but I highly recommend it to like get essentially a true ending. And it is absolutely worth your time.
Yeah, this sits right along in the last.
Get on your Vita.
Grab that on Vita, so I can
stuff
watch
like-
Punisher with Marty.
I already finished Punisher.
I don't wanna
Can't
watch Punisher
I
anymore.
finished She's Gotta Have It. You can't watch that with me either.
Okay, well, we'll find another Netflix show that you haven't watched all of.
Girl
watch it
Boss.
together.
Did you finish Girl
I
Boss?
finished Girl Boss. I love
Have
Girl
you guys
Boss.
seen? There's a lot of anime. I can recommend
Is your
some.
nice on
We'll come
Netflix
back to
yet?
that. We'll come
Oh
back
yeah,
to
there's anime later.
Oh yeah.
Yes, stick around, folks. There will be anime later.
I'm sorry. I bring it with me wherever I go.
This film, there
There will be
anime.
anime.
So one game that we are talking a lot about in the Game of the Year discussions is Wolfenstein 2: The New Colossus. People are loving this game, and you should check it out by playing the demo that is available. It's the opening mission, and it lets you transfer your save.
Why doesn't literally every game ever just do this?
Yeah.
Prey didn't
Remember
do
when
it
this used
that
to be a
demo came
thing
out, I
that
think.
would
It
always
used
happen?
to be a
Yeah.
thing.
Well, this is so smart just to have a demo, especially for a game that was released at a time when so many other big games came out. It's like, hey, if you missed Wolfenstein 2 because you picked up Assassin's Creed or you had Mario or something else.
Or you're still playing the 1,000 games that came out before.
Yeah, like here's a chance to try it out with no pressure. And like that was such a big thing of the 360 PS3 era that I missed. Like I bought BioShock because I played that demo and got to a point and I was like, oh my God, I need this game.
But did the saves even transfer over back
No,
then?
but I was okay with that.
At the very
But, like,
least, you
here-
could try it and be like, hey, the first hour is incredible.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'll replay it. Whereas this is like, you're going to finish the opening and then digitally, you can just hit a button and give them your money and then you have it. And it was cheap over the weekend. It was $30. I imagine it's going to keep going, having moments where it's down in price like that. Like Destiny's 2 is also doing a very similar thing where they're opening up a couple story missions and then a bunch of multiplayer stuff.
Yeah.
And you can try it for free. And then if you want to buy it, like that's your character. Like all of that
That's so
progress
smart.
still
Yeah.
transfers over. It's not like, when you have a beta weekend, you're like, well, do I want to sink a ton of time in this game? Because ultimately it's just like, pouring coins down a drain because
Which is fun, but it's not
pouring
it's
coins?
Not, it's not a game, really.
Yeah.
For some of us.
You know those like wishing wells where it spins?
Yeah.
That's what it's
Yeah.
like.
What if you got a lot of wishes? You really want. You got to go find just a
What
big
if I
street,
feel, I just want
street drain.
to throw nickels at Pennywise.
Oh no.
Now, in other Wolfenstein news, this is hilarious. So, for those of you not in the know, in Germany, Nazi imagery is censored heavily, and in Wolfenstein, there are just a lot of Nazis that you have to kill. So they had to do some tweaks to that game, and so there's like a censored version that was released in Germany where all mentions of Nazis are removed. The swastikas are all covered up or whatever. I think they're just X's or something, and then in Hitler's in there. But they take away his mustache, and he's also not Hitler. He's just a bad guy.
I am floored to figure out how they walked around this.
I don't-
Because, like,
yeah.
it's not a spoiler to say there's a Hitler's in the game, and he's like on a port. Like, if he's not Hitler, what's he doing?
Hey, if Justice League can pull it off with mustache technology,
Yeah, I guess
so
so.
can Wolfenstein.
Well, I'm just like, you can remove his mustache, that's fine. But like, if you're not Hitler, what are you
Yeah.
doing here?
So yeah, this is also this is just very funny. Apparently, it's like really serious in Germany,
Sure,
where if you're even like importing anything that has like Nazi stuff on it, it's an issue. So Bethesda's, it's not like Bethesda's like, oh, we're putting out a censored version. It's kind of like, oh, if we want to release this game at all and not be fined,
Right.
here it is. Meanwhile, the game wasn't released in any form in Israel, which is sort of interesting. And some fans of the series who were based out of Israel were like, that's kind of weird. we kind of hate Nazis here. We'd sort of be cool to play a game where you shoot them. They released what they're calling sort of indie DLC, which is called Wolfenstein: The New Censorship.
The best name.
And it's just a free Unity browser game, but basically you go down this long hallway that's just nothing but different portraits of Hitler. And there's all these signs that pop up and they kind of explain the whole scenario and they kind of walk you through it. It takes you like 5 minutes to play through or whatever. And then you wind up in this big arena that's just full of swastikas and a picture of Hitler. But Hitler's mustache keeps flying off in waves and attacking you. So there's like little mustaches that just come at you and explode. And then there's slightly larger ones that fly off and will shoot smaller. Again, this is just a little black rectangle with like hair texture on it. And then there's a really big one that'll hop around. So you're fighting these different types of Hitler mustache enemies with a gun that has a Star of David for the crosshair.
That's amazing.
This also totally seems like a thing that they would have just put in Wolfenstein.
Yeah.
Like this totally seems on brand.
Secret
Like
minigame.
In the first game, like you could take a nap in your base and you have a nightmare where it's just Wolfenstein 3D. And the same thing in this one, like there's an arcade cabinet in your home base where you can play Wolfenstein and BJ will be like, that's not realistic. It's like, well,
Yeah,
that's you.
I mean, I kind of love that. It gets weird and complicated and political, and I mean, the whole concept of sort of censorship in the age of the internet is a complicated one. But I love that they did this kind of in good fun, and it's like, hey, it's Wolfenstein.
You can tell they definitely had fun with it too.
Yeah. I mean, it's also funny that like we talked about this like a month or two ago. The game's marketing is definitely political and it was definitely smart and leaning in towards modern events. The game itself isn't political because the Nazis and the KKK are the bad guys. Like that's not a political statement. They're the bad guys. And that's it. Like that's like being like those zombies. I'm like, no, the zombies. I'm not sympathizing with the zombies. Like they're the bad guys. Like,
But what if we are the Walking Dead?
Vice did a wonderful video segment on this where they kind of just dug into the whole like the marketing of Wolfenstein, and they talked to Pete Hines, who's the head of PR for Bethesda, and he's awesome. I love this dude. He's so just no bull. I mean, in spite of all the bullshit that he has to do for his job as a PR person, but they went and talked to him, and he's got this wonderful, just like Boston accent, and they were like, "So, have you thought about like people who maybe are Nazis being offended by this games?" And he goes like, "So what? Those guys."
Yeah, there's one line where he's like, they're like, the hornet's nest, you're kicking it kind of with this. And he's like, yeah, but the hornet's nest is full of Nazis.
Yeah.
So I'll kick the
sort of fine with
nest.
kicking it. Yeah.
Super funny to check that out. I mean, it's honestly just the fact that it's a topic of conversation is there's a reason for that.
Yeah. But it's also it's just such an incredible shooter with an amazing campaign. And like the past couple of weeks we've been talking about loot crates and microtransactions and sort of the overcomplification of the industry. This is a game that is very simple where you purchase it, you get the campaign. If you want, you can play the DLC solo missions as it comes out. But if you want to support awesome, gorgeous, smart campaigns.
Wait, DokiDoki Literature Club.
Also play that. That's free as hell.
No, but no, for sure.
Yeah, that's the thing. Is literally every game, I guess, aside from AC. I guess no, there's microtransactions in there's Persona.
Persona, really?
Yeah.
Are there?
In Persona. I mean, you can buy a bunch of costumes.
Yeah.
It's the
Plus
only
DLC, yeah.
It's the only game where I've ever bought cosmetic DLC because I could buy all the Catherine uniforms.
Oh.
And then I bought them and I was like, wait, you're not the characters from Persona. I want to go back.
Did you just cosplay on as a character from Catherine?
I mean, that was it.
is that
But it's like
all it
weird because she's wearing like her nightgown, which is what Catherine wears.
Don't they have
and all
some
the
of them
nightmares.
free? Like some of the outfits are free.
A bunch of stuff is free. Yeah.
Yeah.
And you can get, and it's cool because you can also buy all the outfits from Persona 1, 2, 3, 4, from like Q and Dancing All Night.
It has Dancing All Night like that too.
Yeah.
Didn't Andrew do the math that it comes out if you buy it all, it's like some really absurd amount of money for little fake anime clothes?
He didn't
he
do
paid it
he didn't
all.
do
It's
the
crazy.
math. He looked at his credit card.
Yeah, true.
Oh.
He looked at why he couldn't buy dinner.
He probably expensed it. It's fine.
Yeah, it's really weird though that I saw Walt Williams, who we had on the show, who wrote the Star Wars Battlefront 2. So I don't want to say it too loud, otherwise people will get mad at me for saying the name of it. But he was talking about how gamers typically don't understand the difference in what it costs to produce like digital goods versus physical ones, and a $200 collector's edition that comes with a plastic statue and an art book or whatever is like, they don't bat an eyelash because there is that physical component, but then the cost of making an entire high-res costume for a character is also a very expensive thing, though there's no actual physical component to it. And
Still have to pay people. It's
yeah,
price.
exactly. Yeah.
Well, and the nicer games start to look, the harder that is. Like you're not just like swapping colors or anything. Like you're creating a brand new thing that has its own set of rules and physics and manipulation.
I think that they should have like low res DLC that's cheaper. I think it's just like they had, I don't know, like PS1 era Snake is
Like the
like,
SD and HD
Yeah,
you're like,
DLC.
all right.
480p costume.
Yeah, you could get the old like in
only
Rise of the
$1.
Tomb Raider. I think you could get polygonal.
Oh, it's
across.
awful.
Yeah.
It's awful.
I know.
looking.
I think some people want that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I played like through one mission where Lara is big head mode, low poly PS1 graphics, and is leaving a rainbow trail behind her.
Oh no!
And it was just awful. It was like playing like a bad, like one of those bootleg like Android games.
Yeah, I was
This
playing
isn't the real thing.
I guess I won't go into spoilers. I was playing a recent game over the weekend, and there's a thing where you can get a costume that looks like that era of games. And I was like, "This is gonna be great. This is how I'm gonna play." And I would like ran like 30 feet. I'm like, "I hate this. I hate this. I want to go back."
I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, I was like, "I don't like this. This makes me uncomfortable."
All right, so here's a big piece of news. This is a bummer for a lot of people. After almost a decade, Sony is shutting down Demon's Souls servers. So February 28th, 2018, they will be dead, and you can't go back and get all the loot back from them. But that, I never played Demon's Souls. Somebody else went up with this
I
one.
feel like
Gotta
you'll
play
let
now.
me have-
Yeah, you only have 2 months.
Actually, no, that's not true. I got it when it was on PS Plus, and I was like, I'm gonna try to run through it as fast as I can, and I got like 3 rooms in, and then just got immediately killed. I was like, yeah, that's exactly what I thought.
Yeah, I thought this is how it's going to end.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is interesting because obviously Demon's Souls was the precursor to the Dark Souls trilogy. That was the game that put From on the map and Miyazaki on the map. And it does similar online stuff. I think of it in the same way that Dark Souls and Bloodborne does. But it's sad because this is a community that like this, this was an early PS3 game and it hasn't really been re-released or remastered. Like it's not like Dark Souls 3 or 2 or Bloodborne that you could play on a PS4.
Did it ever get a PC release?
No, this one never got, because this
man.
one was published by Atlas I think this was Atlas in the US, but Sony published it in Japan. I think that was the way. So like technically, I don't think it can come to anything else because like Sony still has its thumb on it in certain regions. I mean, it could come to PS4 clearly, which part of me still thinks that if they're not going to announce, if FromSoft's not going to like go to PSX or E3 and be like, here's our new game, then they're going to be like, Demon's Souls remastered for PS4, and so maybe that would be like, well, these servers are going down, but they're going back up next year when this thing comes out. And mostly the interesting thing about this is like, well, yeah, like you'll still be able to play the game, you just won't be able to do any of the PvP or PvE. But there's one very like memorable mechanical thing that are the statute of limitations up on this game?
Yeah,
Ish.
they're shutting down the server.
Spoilers for
Spoilers.
a minute,
Stop. If you
care.
are still going to do this, I guess, yeah, in theory, you can only do this in the next 2 months. You would sort of, you'd appear into another player's game and you'd be the boss in their game and you didn't realize that. Or a character would appear in your game, you would fight them, you didn't realize that you were fighting a human character. You thought you were still fighting an AI boss. And then later on, when you hit that point in the game, you would be summoned into another player's game. And so you're like, holy crap, oh, that boss was another person. And
That's so cool.
It's like when if you were playing Journey and didn't realize those were other people. You're like, oh no, everyone you saw. Yeah. Right.
I never played Journey. Surprise.
You never played Journey?
Oh my god!
Don't play Undertale a 6th time. Play
Sorry,
Journey.
I have priority.
Good
Well,
lord.
not Undertale again, but also
I'm going to tell Sam to assign you with the Journey
It
It
guide.
takes 3 hours. Just do it.
I keep
not scary.
forgetting about it. I keep forgetting it.
Lord Miranda.
Don't forget it exists.
Oh yeah, Journey. That's a game I need to play.
But no, like this is fun to think about. Because it's not. You can still play the game. Like, you can still play the main
Most of
bulk
the
of it. Yeah. You just can't do that one segment. I'll be curious if that just gives you an error. or
Maybe
you
they'll
just-
have like an update for a workaround. Like I doubt
Yeah.
it, but
Yeah, I just don't know. Maybe they'll just turn it into an AI, or maybe there was an AI component of it, because
Right.
chances are, if you're playing the game
yeah.
now, you're not going to be instanced into someone else playing the game. Like, you know
Well,
what I mean? There's probably
yeah.
not enough people that are both going to be at that
Concurrent.
point.
True. Yeah.
right.
So, yeah, I don't know. That's really interesting.
And that didn't require a constant online connection anyway, right?
No, I don't think
Okay.
so.
Yeah.
so
there's probably,
there's probably an offline workaround
Right.
that they had.
Oh,
to check
totally.
in.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And also, we didn't put it on here, but another piece of small, interesting from news is that 2.5 years later, someone discovered a new Bloodborne enemy.
God, I love that.
Oh yeah.
Like, it was an enemy that they had shown originally during a PSX demo before the game came out, and it was this like big sort of weird troll thing with these firearms, and then no one found it in the game and assumed it was just like cut, but then it turns out you had to roll a very specific chalice dungeon, and like no one had done that in 2.5 years, and a dude was finally playing the game and was like, oh, I rolled this very specific dungeon, and look, it's that guy, he's back.
I wonder
him.
how the designer feels about that. It's
Finally.
like someone has
Yeah.
finally
Yeah.
found
Finally,
something.
my fire troll waifu is back.
Oh no.
Lady on.
Oh, no.
It's his Lady on.
That's awesome. So this is a weird piece of news. Epic Games is suing a 14-year-old boy for cheating at Fortnite. And this is a problem for a lot of different reasons. Basically, he used an aimbot, which is, I guess you
The AIM chat.
Yeah,
client.
you pay. Yeah, you download AOL Instant Messenger, and then you talk to Smarter Child on there.
My best friend from my childhood.
Of course.
But no, basically, like this kid was. I think he paid either just installed like a mod to the game that made it so he was better at it. And Epic is responding not by finding where he got the aimbot and shutting that down, but going after this one individual specifically. Unfortunately, they have incurred the wrath of his mother, who's sort of like, hey, it says here on the fine print that minors aren't supposed to play the game without the permission of their parents, and I didn't give permission for this, so you can't sue us. And also, I think, what is it? It's like in Delaware, it's illegal to like reveal the name of a minor in a lawsuit, and they totally did that. So they're kind of like, oh.
Yeah.
If Molly Weasley taught us anything,
yeah, right.
don't cross a mother.
No, she wrote this
Yeah.
whole like statement. It was just like, oh, wow, okay.
Yeah.
Go
totally,
for you, Mom.
Yeah.
Also, ground your child.
Yeah,
and,
exactly.
Don't sue children.
Yeah,
I mean,
I feel like there's a lot of parties at wrong here. 'Cause the kid also
Yeah.
he
Oh, the
uploaded
the kid sucks.
He uploaded
Like-
a YouTube video of it, and Epic contacted him, was like, "Please take it down." And he's like, "No."
Yeah.
And then they're like, "All right, we're gonna sue you." I'm
Sounds like a 14-year-old.
yeah. I was like, yeah.
I like to think that Epic also has a 14-year-old working in their like legal department. These two kids having this like very public flame war.
This is
He's
my
in a suit,
business.
though.
It's just Cheetos.
Business.
But no, like the really interesting thing here, aside from just decisions being made, is that if you dig down into it, when you've got a free-to-play game that relies on either microtransactions or people to actually play the game by the rules to do stuff, that is kind of a bad thing, you know? Like I feel like if it's just multiplayer and you're just competing for points or whatever, it's cheating and it still sucks. And if it's a single player game and you're cheating, then you're just, I don't know, you're unlocking God mode or whatever. But when you're playing a game that is free and online, then stays online because of, you know, the nasty word microtransactions, it's sort of like, is that stealing? To cheat to get that stuff faster? Like I know that people are very mad at me. I feel like you guys are mad at me for
No.
suggesting it, but-
I just think it's a weird gray area.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
I hate that they haven't learned from the mistakes of the early 2000s and people getting sued for Napster and stuff and the whole anti-piracy thing. I think it's maybe whipping out the legal big guns first is the wrong way to do it. By all means, ban the kid, whatever.
Yeah, that's usually the first thing people go to. I
Yeah.
just think because there are a lot of free-to-play games out there, and usually they just ban people who cheat.
Yeah.
And then that's done.
And I mean, I imagine when there is like that, and there's always been that kind of, I don't know, you look at like Blizzard games and there's that gray area of like people reselling like gold farming and stuff and people selling gear off
Yeah,
the
that
side.
happens in a lot of things.
Yeah, or like
Yeah.
giving your account over for $200 for 2 days, and someone will just play it nonstop.
I remember when was it Dota? Maybe it was Dota or League, but I remember playing against a bot when it should not have been a bot. Like it's supposed to be like a PvP match. Yeah, and they were just acting weird. It's just like, what is happening?
Yeah.
And so you can just tell like when something is programmed or something to play, and it's just like this is not right.
That's weird.
Yeah.
Yeah, that doesn't happen anymore.
Yeah.
If it was Dota, I forget which game it was.
Yeah.
I mean, in terms of like free to play games and all the microtransactions, like we're getting into that point where things are going to come under legal scrutiny. I mean, like we've seen lawmakers in a few European countries, we've seen lawmakers in Hawaii who are saying they're talking to people in other states in the US. Like we're sort of at like the tipping point of it where that's going to become the touch point.
Yeah, I mean, well, the second that real money starts becoming like, or funny money starts becoming real money, then it's like, I mean, you get people selling swag on eBay that they're like, oh, I got a bandana in PUBG. Like, you want to buy?
I mean,
it from
people
me?
do that.
Yeah,
Because it's
real
like
money,
with
That's
Dota.
nothing new. Yeah,
There's a $750 bunny.
don't you have that bunny?
Oh, I don't. I wish I did.
I thought you were trying to get that bunny.
I wanted it, but it's too much.
Go fund me for the bunny.
I only have $300 in Dota bucks right now,
fund me.
guys.
Go fund me.
But then it's funny because you also have cryptocurrencies and stuff like Ethereum and Bitcoin and stuff floating around there. So it's like maybe, oh crap, maybe money was never real to begin with, and we're all just like.
Well, I think the government's now interested in it because of like, how do we tax this?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, that's
Exactly.
mostly what it is. Like,
Yeah.
they don't care that it's happening,
Yeah.
but they're like, how do we make money off it?
Yeah. But yeah, I hear Fortnite's doing okay over there. They got that PUBG version.
Also, I think Fortnite's doing insanely well, which is funny for a game that we'd been previewing for like 4.5 years, and you know, it was coming out earlier this year, and we're like, finally, no one's gonna care. Everyone's just playing PUBG.
it was literally the first Unreal 4 game announced.
Yeah.
And that was 2011 that got showed off. Yeah.
And then
So it's out.
and then they did their free battle royale mode, and
So they are going to stop that 14-year-old from fucking it up for everybody else. Yeah, so that's really all the
The one
news.
threat to democracy.
yeah.
Yeah. I feel like we had a good time hanging out and chatting there, guys.
Did.
Anything
You
else
got a
you
little
wanna
mad
talk
at the end about the man and the
What?
system.
Oh, the man. Yeah, I don't
Yeah.
know. I don't know. It's all terrible. What do
There's
you
lots
want?
to be angry
Yeah,
about.
most of it's terrible.
It's great stuff too, though. I got a dog. It's pretty cool.
Your dog's wonderful.
Yeah, he's a good.
Your dog's
good
the
boy.
best dog I know.
Yeah. Thanks,
Don't let my
guys.
sister know that.
Yeah, I'm gonna go home and
She has
pat it
a dog.
angrily.
My sister. We have a bunch of exciting stuff coming up in the pipeline, such as I think next week we'll probably talk about Game of the Year stuff.
Can we talk about our PSX plans? Because I don't even know what we're doing.
We can.
What are we
We
doing?
can't reveal a very specific time yet, but
420.
I don't even know
Nice.
if we can.
I don't think I was looking at
We
the
are
right camera
doing-
there. I was looking at the wrong one.
Look at the wrong one, too.
The full Beyond crew, us and Andrew and Alana and
We'll just take her leave.
yeah.
We'll
and
bye.
Brian.
Hey, Miranda,
we're
you wanna
all-
go hang out that
We're all
day?
we're all going to be down in Anaheim for several of the days, and we're going to do a very special Beyond thing that we could talk about very soon. Follow us all on Twitter and everything. We'll have details about that. But we'll be around. I think we're organizing a little meetup thing. Maybe the thing will be called 500. Maybe it won't. Who knows? It doesn't matter. Numbers are a human construct. They don't actually exist.
Yeah, just like money and bitcoins. Anyway,
Man, why are you so angry at cryptocurrency?
I don't know. They're weird.
My roommate, I think he quit his job and now he listens to cryptocurrency podcasts. And I'm like, is this what happens when rent comes? Because I'm giving you money, and then where does that go?
I have a JPEG. Kind of.
Yeah, I don't understand how any of that
Yeah,
works.
that makes no sense.
Yeah.
I'll buy that JPEG. What's it of?
Marty,
Oh, how high resolution is it?
480p.
It's an improvement over the real thing. Oh, it's the GoldenEye model of Marty. All right, so yeah, that's the show. If you want to check out Rapid Fire, where we're going to talk about anime, go ahead to youtube.com/IGNBeyond, where we're going to answer all your silly questions. And we're also doing some funny Let's Plays over there, so go check that out. And head over to the Podcast Beyond Facebook group, which is facebook.com/group/Podcast Beyond, and go make some friends in there and see what's going on, see what everyone's playing. If you're looking for a buddy to play a multiplayer game with, good news, we sued all the 14-year-old cheaters who hang out in there, so you can find some real sporting gentle folks.
15-year-olds.
Yeah.
They're honest.
Big kids, you know what I'm saying. Yeah, and you can find us all on Twitter. Miranda, you are
At Havoc Rose.
Havoc Rose, and JM Dornbush over here. Would it just I feel like that should be engraved on a pen. Like that's such a
It's my
formal.
law firm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, and then on the other end of the spectrum, we've got McBiggity with 2 G's and 2 T's.
I tried to woo a girl that I really liked in college by giving her a really nice engraved pen with her pen name. And I gave it to her for Christmas, and then she told me that she was staying with her boyfriend, so that didn't work. 'Cause
No.
She told me she was gonna break up, but that didn't happen.
boy.
So that's the only time I've ever given anyone an engraved pen. So
Did she keep the pen?
I gave her. She still has the pen.
Good, because it says her friggin' name on it.
Well, it has her pen name. That's not a real name.
All right. Well, it's not your name either.
Well, then,
pen
like,
name,
I got
that's
mad
a
afterwards.
pen
I was like, well, I was thinking to myself, I'm like, you're never going to use it for anything anyways. And now she's like a published author, and she's like a professor. And
And her name was Stephanie McBiggity.
I thought you were going to say Stephanie Meyer.
Yeah.
Same difference. All right.
E.L. James.
On that note, guys, Beyond.
Beyond.
Beyond.